Action.
The air was thick with blunt smoke and cheap liquor. A single roach scurried across the cracked linoleum floor as Zyla Washington sat cross-legged in the dark, prying open the back of a stolen radio. Her father Jamal was slumped over on the couch, an empty ball in his hand. His Navy medals, the only proof of the man he used to be, gathered dust on the table. Outside, the projects were alive. A baby cried, a woman screamed down the hall, a gunshot cracked in the night. But Zyla didn't flinch. She was busy learning how to escape. She connected 2 wires, and then she flipped a switch, static. A voice, foreign, coded, Chinese. She didn't understand the words yet, but one day she would. And when that day came, she'd make sure that the whole world listened. Zyla grew up navigating the harsh realities of the projects. She taught herself coding by hacking old computers she found by the dumpster. By 14, she was running an underground repair shop, fixing phones, jailbreaking devices, and making more money than most of the adults around her. Her father, once a disciplined sailor, had become a shadow of himself. He loved Zyla, but the weight of his past and the bottle clung to him and kept him from being the father that she needed. Still, his occasional moments of clarity provided lessons that she needed to shape her resilience. "The system ain't built for us, baby girl," he'll tell her. "So you gotta build your own." And that idea burned in her mind, and she was going to find a way out, not just for her, but for everyone like her. At 23, Zyla had built a small but thriving tech startup, Black Yak, a social media company that transformed the way users shared information. Unlike traditional platforms that kept users hooked with endless scrolling, Black Yak gave control back to the people. Users could set goals, filter content based on personal development, and receive tailored feeds that empowered them rather than distracted them. It became a digital ecosystem for learning, entrepreneurship, and real-world change. Black Yak didn't just stop the scroll, it redirected it towards success. That's when the Chinese investors came knocking. At first, she thought it was a dream come true. Millions of dollars in funding, access to international markets, she had made it. But soon she realized the cost of their money. They weren't just investing, they were infiltrating. They wanted to control the digital landscape that she was building. Determined not to become a pawn, Zyla used their funding to buy up entire blocks in the projects. Instead of pushing the people out, she gave them ownership stakes. The people who had been trapped in generational poverty, suddenly they had something to call their own. Black Yak wasn't just a platform, it became the voice of the unheard. Users began using the network to expose corruption, organize, mobilize, and the word spread fast. Zyla wasn't just making money, she was creating a revolution. But the revolution didn't go unnoticed. The United States government had ignored Black Yak's rise, assuming it was just another minority business initiative. But when reports showed that the entire neighborhoods were now operating independently from banks and government aid, alarms went off. Black Yak became a force of resistance. Public enemy number one. The network wasn't just a social media, it was a tool of freedom. She had unknowingly become the most dangerous woman in America. Knowing the storm was coming, Zyla made a bold move. She had to expand into poor white communities. Trailer parks, rural towns, forgotten places that had been crushed by the same system that oppressed the Black America. Now, she wasn't just a leader for Black people. She had become an icon for the underclass in America. Black Yak became the platform where struggling masses could organize, learn, and grow their own power. The elites couldn't let this stand. They spun the narrative, making it look like she was a foreign agent, a radical threat to the American way of life. The government imposed regulations, censored Black Yak, and launched investigations. They attempted to buy her out, but she refused. Then they tried to frame her, but the people stood with her. Black Yak had turned millions and millions of disenfranchised Americans into owners, giving Zyla unprecedented political capital. She didn't just control a social media network, she controlled the will of the people. The government cracked down, freezing assets, raids, fake charges, but Zyla had planned for all of this. She launched an alternative financial system, one that couldn't be controlled, one that lived on the blockchain outside of government reach. Black Yak became an underground economy. The Red Projects were no longer just communities. They were a nation within a nation. With a massive grassroots movement behind her, Zyla did the unthinkable and she ran for president. The media mocked her at first. The establishment tried to block her, but the people's voices were too loud to ignore. Her digital empire turned into a political revolution. She was now poised to become the most powerful woman in the country. Washington, D.C., midnight. The Capitol building glowed in the distance, but Zyla wasn't looking at it. She was looking beyond it. She tapped a button on her screen. Across the country, thousands of property deeds transferred into the hands of the people who live there. The projects belong to the people now. Black Yak servers rerouted, decentralizing their entire platform. The government could never shut it down again. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You've gone too far, Mrs. Washington. Time to come home." No name, no threats, just a warning. She smirked. Let them come.
The greatest American alive.